your summary would be useful. Maybe
Yeah, that's true.
easy to repeat, or Connor, maybe you can. Either way, I don't know.
Yeah, Connor, did I touch on how you would summarize the rapid sense-making framework, or maybe you could restate it and then we can take a little round.
Actually, to be fully honest, I was distracted, so I missed how you said it. Maybe you
Okay.
should say it again.
Okay, well, just quickly, I was giving context for this call as sort of an update and a demo for the rapid sense-making framework, which currently exists in multiple forms. There's some design documents, but there's also a GitHub repo for some of the existing sort of software code that exists. And the summary was basically that it's a modular framework for process designers and facilitators to augment themselves with digital tools for doing sort of larger scale surveying and other forms of sort of group processes and such as voting or even sort of answering queries or prompts with text-based or voice-based entry. Yeah, I'll stop there.
Yay, that's awesome. Yeah. It's often good to get it actually being described by someone who doesn't it's not like crunching code, because sometimes I have a weird set of abstracted versions of what it actually is or what it does for you for people. So it's like definitely the way you described it is great. Have been really emphasizing the tool for augmenting process designers, and there's been this phrase that's kind of taking root a little bit, of doing collective intelligence design. And so how do we design for collective intelligence? And is there such a thing as collective intelligence designers? And if there is, then what kinds of, if a photographer's tools are cameras and photo editing tools, then what are the tools for someone who practices collective intelligence design? Are kind of some of the guiding questions. Yeah, it's going to be fun. Since we're going to actually it's an interactive demo today. So we'll do things that everyone, I think, as long as you have a Mattermost account on the Chat Dig Life Co-op site, then I think everyone can definitely participate that way. But you'll also see that there's different ways that people can participate, and that's part of what Rapid Sense-Making Framework is. I describe it as being cross-platform and cross-protocol, because it's a toolkit that doesn't care so much what platform you're on. It can work along with people's preferences, whether that's basically any text-based chat system. That could be you do have to implement kind of sort of like bindings to these different systems, but it's so far, for example, there's SMS, Mattermost, Telegram, and another one, a protocol, this secure scuttlebutt that I've been working on. And so, but the idea is this will be a growing list via which you can interact with the rapid sense-making framework processes. Yeah, so anyways, it's this cross-platform approach to things, instead of getting into like platform lock-in and everybody has to jump on the same boat. So that's a really important piece of groundwork for what rapid sense-making framework is. And yeah, a bit of broader context that I'll open with too is like there's a history to rapid sensemaking framework that comes from prior work that Rob and I have done along with others on metamaps. Metamaps.cc is a sense-making tool, visual concept mapping. And then that led to an exploration in bot integrations and chat systems, and how can we use how can we integrate chat systems for collective intelligence purposes? And we did a little bit of experimentation and down that direction that was tightly coupled with metamaps. And in the most recent iteration, I've kind of decoupled it from metamaps entirely, so that it's kind of a standalone toolkit that maybe in the future could reintegrate with metamaps, but exists independently. And so there's been a history over the last like 6 or 8 years of us working on sense making and CI tools, and this is kind of the latest exploration. And the current status of the project is kind of it's been a year of dedicating some time to trying to create like an MVP and to do some of those like validating assumptions. How can I develop an MVP that I can get into the real world, test with real people in real contexts? This is a test here with all of you, as well as I'm looking at contexts where I'm on the ground or other people are on the ground in a real, a live facilitated session in a room, and you're using rapid sensemaking framework in that context too. So either distributed, like we are right now, or also like real-time, in-person kind of situations. And I'm hoping to test it in those kinds of situations either this year or early next year as well. And so, yeah, so I have a kind of prototype. I'm looking for feedback and just lessons to learn, seeing what kind of experience people have with it, getting people's thoughts. And so I appreciate that you're all here for that. And I'm gonna be quiet now.
Not that we need to go in any sort of order, so hop in if you have something you want to add, but I'm curious sort of individually what sort of drew everyone here. I know some of you have some context for RSF, but I think it'd be useful to cater some of what's demoed or shown today to sort of the reasons why people have showed up.
I could just jump in and say, yay! I'm just remain excited and eager to hear about next steps and where it's going, and how I and we, various clusters of we, can get involved and push it, help make it happen. And without trying to go into it too much now, I did have back when some earlier calls happened, a lot of ideas, sort of explosions around different applications on the ground for sure. I think the one exciting one, which some of you know about, is the disaster response usage, and so that remains. I think that's still really ripe for potential. And then in general, I've been engaging in a group around pedagogy. I don't know if everybody here knows about pedagogy. peeragogy.org. Peeragogy.org is an open source collaborative handbook for peer-to-peer learning. So there's been a kind of reading group, partly related to Digital Life Collective and Open Learning Commons, that's kind of morphed into or very fuzzily overlaps with the actual process of the pedagogy editing and updating into what's now going to be the 4th edition. And then there's some various discussions around that, also going into the business direction, business modeling, and exploring decentralized organizations, for example. and I have a lot of energy around that, and interest and excitement around that. And there as well, I see a potential to integrate or to weave in somehow the rapid sense making with pedagogy at large, and then also in more use cases around there, that environment. That's me.
I can just chime in quickly with the intent to, yeah, I'm excited for the opportunity and for maybe spending most of our time with the demo and playing with it. Some of the applications or use cases I see are in, transformative networks, focused a bit. Some of it is bridging with people who are less tech savvy, and also that's what some of the spaces I've been engaging. But yeah, I'm excited to see how it comes together. Glad to be here.
Did you say transformative networks, Kayla, and just what does that mean to you, or when you say that?
Well, yeah, it's interesting. Like for me, it's basically a bit from a network weaving context. So a lot of networks that are scaling for change, are working for change in the world. So that being the transformative side. Yeah,
Nice.
and yeah, networking. For myself, it's a network weaving reference too. So network of networks, and then life being the underlying network that is actually the one that we're supporting. Yeah.
Cool. Gotcha.
Yeah, I'm probably the least tech savvy person here, and I'm really here just to learn, and again, from a networking point of view. So thank you for having me.
Hey, Connor.
Hey, Lauren.
I was in your session before with Christina.
Right. Yes.
And so yeah, I've been trying to jump into collective intelligence fundraising, especially for myself. But I'm trying to figure. I'm talking in a meeting, sweetie. I don't know. Go find them. I don't even know where they are. Okay, so I am trying to figure out how we're going to get paid to do some collective intelligence, and I've been trying to put together a collective intelligence collaboratory based on an idea of wedding tables that we came up with a while ago. So the concept is that they're different tables, and they're each having their own discussion and trying to figure out how to seed the tables and figure out what's going on with so many discussions happening at the same time, and figuring out how to make a smarter room and move the information around the tables. So, and I'm super excited about the way that you're describing the framework. I think you've come a long way just in your words, and it really makes a difference. And it's really powerful. I love it.
Amazing. Cool.
Well, it's something that just came up for me before. I don't know. In talking with Connor before this started, it seems he's got a bunch planned, so I don't want to sort of take up that sort of time. But it occurred to me that we were sort of scheming about different ways we could be playful on this call about using RSF and a sort of more something that's likely too complicated, or Connor said was too complicated for now at least. Made me think of it, what you were saying, Lauren, about the wedding table stuff, because the game I was sort of proposing we could play on here is, well, I'm sure Connor will show us what pairwise comparison is, but basically that there's, of all the different possible pairings of the people on this call, we could sort of think of all those pairings as potential breakout rooms, and then we could sort of be iterate over those pairings and say, oh, what should Stacy and Kiela talk about? What should Charles and Connor talk about? And then also iterate on sort of which pairings definitely need to happen if we're short on time. That, oh, Lauren definitely needs to talk to Kiela. And that we could do, using RSF, a sort of iterative voting process, and then basically do those breakouts. And you'd even have a sort of proposed topic in the breakouts because people had already voted on sort of what everyone should be talking about, or almost as like a prediction market for conversation or something like that. But anyways, I'll stop there.
That's actually pretty incredible,
It's
because
really
that's
cool.
dealing with some problems that we're running into in the DAO space of like matching and onboarding, and like how do you quick match people up with similar interest, or who needs to talk to who. So that's like, that's pretty, that's
Oh,
good.
that's really cool. That's really
That's
interesting.
really good. And there'll be like a little more time just doing the groundwork of like writing it out, making it into an outline, and then like basically scripting it. And then you could really fly. I could see that.
Yeah, so let's play. So cool. So you can start at screen sharing. I guess I have quick questions first. Does everyone have an account on the Dig Life Co-op Telegram? Stacey,
I
no.
don't.
Lauren, no.
Am I connected to a chat?
Sorry, Telegram. No, not Telegram. Sorry, the I mixed that up. Mattermost. Sorry.
I do, but I'm not. It was on my other computer, so the cookies aren't there, and it's like a pain getting in.
Okay. Does everyone have one of Telegram or the Mattermost? Lauren, do you have Telegram?
I do, yeah.
Okay, so that's an option for participating that way. Stacy, do you have Telegram? You're muted.
I have both. I just had I can only access it from my phone though.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. There, that screen. So what's evolved since last time is that I've been developing an actual graphical user interface or app, an app-based tool for working with rapid sensemaking. And this is just a sort of a placeholder or exploratory name. I don't think rapid sensemaking framework. It's a little long and all that for actually kind of putting into an app that you download and use. So so the reason it looks like it does is because I've been working with my partner Pega, who's a UI designer, UX designer, and she's been kind of essentially creating wireframes and sort of like MVP information architecture for the app. So that we've got it far enough along to be able to use it and to demo it. But a lot of it, these images are just gray because they're just essentially placeholders for what might be icons and imagery and stuff like that. But right now, we're focused on getting a very simple, very kind of functional MVP that we can play with. And So from last time, the idea that as a process designer, looking to engage a group of people in any kind of either sense making or feedback process, either divergent or convergent. So the divergent stuff is, of course, like brainstorming and anything where you're generating whole new sets of ideas and content. And the convergent stuff is usually more like feedback stuff, where you've got a preset kind of info set that you're working with, and you probably want to assess it in some way against a group. You want to see how do they feel, what do they think, what do they how do they relate to it, or even what kinds of these pairs ones are kind of what Robert was mentioning as a pairwise comparison type process, and that's how can we look at and compare sets of things in a network and evaluate them either by choosing between them or just kind of saying some kind of freeform style. That's this one, and this one being like numeric. Describe a numeric value to a relationship between two elements. So so these are some of the starter templates that you kind of begin with, and we can go initially with what Robert kind of was thinking around. Let's play one where we respond to this question like Robert framed as we'll start with a list of all of us who are here, and we can respond to each of them saying, what do we think these two people should talk about? So if this is the process that we want to run, this is a pairs freeform style process. Now you get into the process design, where and there's 5 steps, and once we go through this, then we're actually gonna play this. So the statements thing here actually is those of us who are on this call. That's what we're wanting to use. Hunter, Robert, Kayla, Charles, Lauren, Stacy. This is our 6 people. And our question is, let's maybe instead of should, we can invite something, be more inviting. We say, what might these 2 people enjoy talking about or have in common? And then we can set a time limit for this too. Let's go with 5 minutes. You can toggle this between seconds, minutes, hours. Next, this really gets to the heart of the cross-platform part of RSF, where here, as we're configuring participants, we can choose between different communications platforms and protocols that people use. So as I mentioned, right now there's Telegram, SMS, and Mattermost. But these sort of language bindings or protocol bindings are quite easy to write and extend. So we're kind of forecasting this being a very long list of like different chat platforms that that exist, from Facebook Messenger and the very popular ones to the more obscure ones, like some of the decentralized protocols. So Okay, so right now I have to fill this in for everyone. We've got another option that we're working on, which is the create public link option, where you can just share a link and people can configure and opt in for themselves. But let's go. So I'm going to go first and put in my Telegram username. The names are optional, so I'm going to leave them off. So if people can come off mute and tell me what their preferred chat preferences are that I could fill in here.
Quick question, maybe it's related.
Yeah.
Is it better, easier on a browser, on desktop? Is mobile fine, or?
Mobile's fine as well. But if going with SMS, I'm not sure from where that will work right now, because right now, based on my testing, I have a proxy that's via a Canadian number. So I don't know how it works internationally or whatever in the SMS.
Yeah. So I
just,
wasn't referring to SMS per se.
Right. Telegram or Mattermost, equally fine. Also equally fine on desktop or mobile. You could use whichever you want.
Cool. You can use Mattermost for me. That's fine.
Okay, so Mattermost and your Mattermost username on DigLife?
It's LoveEvolve, which is LoveEvolv. So one E in the middle and no E on the end. LoveEvolve. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
It's the same on Telegram, by the way. So.
Okay, cool. Next.
I'll also go with Mattermost, and it's just Keala, Keala.
Okay. Awesome.
I'll use Telegram. It's Robert_best.
Okay. Lauren or Stacy?
I'll use Mattermost, but I'm just not sure. Well, actually,
It looks like your username on Mattermost is Stacy.
yeah, I see that it's Stacy, but I'm just not sure where on Like I know how to be in the channel I'm in, but I've never actually used it other than the different channels.
Right. Well, what will happen is it will actually open up a direct message with you, a direct message exchange. So your chat won't take place within a channel.
Okay. So then it's Stacy.
Okay, cool. Stacy, also Mattermost. And Lauren.
Mine seems to be Lauren Nino Moore on Telegram.
Lauren Mignon, is that right?
Yeah, Nigon.
Yeah. Is there an underscore or no underscore?
I don't. Oh, username is at Lauren Mignon on Telegram, I believe. Sorry.
Let me see. Let me send you a test message on Telegram and just see if that's right. Yeah, I found Lauren Nino.
Lauren, do you have an additional Telegram, or that's really the one?
No, I think it's mine.
Yeah. Okay. I've got you.
Just test it, because I had a couple different accounts because of moving.
I just sent you a hello on Telegram.
Here, why don't I search for you, Connor, and I'll send you hello. What's yours?
Mine is let me see profile. Myself. Mine was Connor Turlin. Oh, it is a different one. Okay. That's good. Oh, this one doesn't have a username. You haven't set one yet on this one, Lauren.
Lauren, just send Connor a message at Connor Turland.
I did.
Oh,
Yeah, she did. He just needs to, but I don't know if it's worth it
okay.
to work on setting up a username on Telegram and all that. Yeah, I'm gonna let you stick with what you're doing there, Lauren. It seems easier. Okay, Stacy wants to be added this way too. As long as you're in a similar boat though, Stacy, you haven't set your Telegram username. You can do that.
Okay, then that's okay. I'll stay on Mattermost then.
Okay, cool. All right. Okay, remove that one. Wait. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so we've got people configured, and that should work really well. Okay. Let's go on. Next is about the results. Once the results are kind of streaming in, or after everyone has participated and the process is over, there's the question of whether to send the results back to everyone. I like to default to yes, so that everyone gets back the full list of set of results after the process is run. This is a placeholder work in progress for previewing the process that you've just configured, but it assumes that you review it, you're ready, and go to submit. Now the flow is ready, and we can either start it immediately and kick off the process, or we can hold off, and I could actually kick off the process later. So let's say that I say no, I want to start later. This goes into my dashboard, which is where I've got the list of processes that I've configured. And it shows their status too, whether they're complete, running, and which template they're based off of. This is the one that I was just working on. So I go back to it, and here I've got like the kind of dashboard for the process once we go live. And so I'm going to kick off the process, and those of you on Mattermost, you're going to get a direct message from a bot account in the Mattermost called MetaMapper, and Telegram users are going to get this message from the bot, the Rapid Sensemaking bot on Telegram. Let's start. Let's see.
Connor, did you say we needed to message the bot one time first before it can message us? Or
for you and me, we should be fine, Robert, since we have already. Did everyone receive a message? Charles, yes. Stacy, yes. Kayala, did you receive? Yeah, awesome. Okay, so now we're in the process, and we're also seeing in the screen share the results as they're. So you're seeing the facilitator view, which is the one where there's someone who can kind of witness the whole process as it's unfolding. The participants, each of you individually, are going through the questions, iterating through the pairs based on the ones that we configured. And now I'll just let us be quiet and actually respond to these.
So the format is open. We just put the name or the number, or
The format is open. Yeah. So you just share freeform text into the space here as inputs, and yeah.
Is that what I'm supposed to be seeing right now on my phone? Because that's not what's in my message.
Do you see the process will stop automatically, and what might these two people enjoy talking about?
Yes. And then
Okay.
after that, I see 14 remaining,
Mm-hmm.
and I see Connor and Robert.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Now, what you do is you use the text, your input, to respond to the question, and when you send a message, it will send you the next one, and you iterate. You just go through them one by one, answering these prompts. So
one more quick question. Since I just edited the first response, is that going to reflect?
no, the edit's not going to
All right.
reflect.
Okay.
And you can respond, I don't know, if you don't know. Now, I think we did have a 5-minute time cap on this. So at some point, and I couldn't say exactly when, it's gonna shut us down. I think I've realized something just in terms of timing. I think it's running for a different amount of time than I intended for it to run to. So let's see. I don't know how many people, how many to go through people have left. How many does each of you say that you have remaining?
I finished everything.
You finished?
I finished.
I'll also finish.
Okay. Okay. I'm gonna kind of rush mine and skip. So when I complete, and as those of you who have completed, complete all that there is to respond to, you get this, you've responded to everything message as you wait for other people to complete the process as well. So if anyone who's still going can just respond quickly with skips. There we go. Everyone has completed. Awesome. This is amazing. Such a big list. I have to double check how many results this is. But in theory, if this is actually everyone responding to everything, then we had 5 people responding to 6 things.
That's fantastic, honey.
Hey guys, I gotta go because we're eating dinner now, but I'm gonna check out the rest of the video. I can't wait to watch it, and I'm so glad I got to be here for at least a little bit.
Awesome.
So nice seeing you. This is amazing. I can't wait to see the rest.
Awesome. We'll share it with you ASAP. So pretty much everyone, I guess, should have had, 15 responses times 5 of us. So if that's true, then we've got 75 results here. Now, some of them are junk, like my skips, but most of them are excellent and interesting responses.
Isn't there 6 of us?
There's only 5 of us who ran the process because Lauren didn't run the process.
Okay, sorry.
But we did put her into the thing, so we were engaging our questions about what should she talk about with people. So so that would be 75 responses in here. Now the formatting, I'm still working on the formatting, and the reason is because the formatting for these responses needs to be different than the formatting for an ideation or a polling type response, and I need to accommodate all these different types of responses that people give and render them, display them differently. So this is just a little view into the raw data here, but it's enough to show us who the people were for each one. That's Kayala and Lauren, and Stacy's response today at 1:48 p.m. my time was I don't know, to what should Kayla and Lauren talk about.
I put that in for a lot. I got nervous. I just added that. I figured it's just about the demonstration.
Yeah, exactly. In lots of cases, we might not know if we don't know that much about the individuals or that kind of thing. Other times when there's more context for or more of knowledge of people, where you've got Stacy reflecting on Kayala, and Stacy, what might you talk about? got challenges in network weaving. Yeah, obviously you all get the idea. You were just going through it, so I'd love to just like open this up and just hear about people's experiences and check what else coming up for everyone here.
Well, quick question, maybe just, I didn't quite get, you're still working on the formatting. Okay, I got that. But then is this as far as you got, or is there some sort of handy, quick way to render it in a visual way, or that's one of the next things we can look at?
Yeah, some of the next steps are improving the sort of rendering and formatting here in terms of like the outputs. Actually, I can show you. I'm working off of these designs that my partner Pega has been developing, and of the mock-ups and everything, and we could see where this dashboard that we're looking at right now is going. Something a little more, just like improvements to the formatting and the styles, and as well as rendering lots of different kinds of interesting data about the results that are coming in. This would be the results from more of an ideation type session where you're seeing just like raw ideas. In the one that we did, we need to see that extra metadata, or we need to see that extra data about who these were relating, or what was being related. But yeah, the idea is to go towards a dashboard that is more like this. But maybe there was something else to your question.
No, that's cool. And just to come back to your question, I mean, it was really eye-opening. I mean, I think always, this sort of time pressure, setting those parameters, whatever they are. I mean, I don't know if there's some, law, name or label for this law of like always filling up the time or the space that you have. But anyway, it's useful to be trained in that way, and it really produces results. And I really also just like the particular example, and I think when we're able to continue with Lauren, kind of connecting that back into the wedding tables idea, or any similar kind of conversation pair matching, I think this is really cool and definitely useful.
Well, the thing that occurred to me, just because I know we ran through sort of what's can be labeled as a pairwise comparison thing, and for me that always is a useful way of getting at sort of relational data in sort of a graph or network structure. And so I think just thinking about how what we just did would be wonderfully visualized as a graph or sort of node and edge visualization, because we could sort of draw in a circle all the participants, and then between each of them the sort of labeled edges describing what those two people should talk about. And on something like Kumu or another visualization app, you could totally just put yourself at the center or somebody else at the center, and then see all the different conversations that person could be having with someone else. So just thinking about how pairwise stuff lends itself to graph visualization.
Right, exactly. Even that could be a way of presenting data in this view, Rob. Like that could actually be as part of this. Like you could see, there could be something along those lines within this dashboard, a quick cut of a graph viz.
Is there some kind of I mean, this is sort of like all the responses, right? Verbatim, like as people worded them. So just wondering, I guess not, since I didn't hear it, or maybe I missed it. I mean, is there some kind of language analysis mashing up going on at all, or have you thought about that?
Like,
Natural language processing, I guess, is what.
right, from the natural language. Yeah, definitely interested in integrating components of that kind of thing. Like, yeah, of all kinds of different things that you can do with that in terms of like the natural language. So I'm very curious about. I feel like it's very. I just have a general intuition that there's value there right now, but it hasn't been. I haven't kind of like actually explored down that pathway to find any specifics in terms of what kinds of use cases might come up. I mean, there's kind of common ones that aren't even really natural language processing so much as just like, here's a word cloud and stuff like that of common keywords that might pop up within responses or things like that. But you can certainly go deeper with it.
Cool.
Kiala?
Well, I just appreciate, one of the things I wanted to appreciate in particular is like just being able to have the responses come from diverse chat. I mean, like that's really obviously really useful, really cool thing. One of the ideas I had in terms of like drop down menus for the types of questions or ways to refine the number of responses that might happen. Obviously that depends on the context. So doing it in this really open format is really, really cool. And even just being able to see it, at this stage, we could even, if we were in the game, continuing to play with it, we could do that, even just seeing it here like this. You're sharing the screen and then we can all pick out conversations that we would want to have or something like that.
Right.
But
right.
definitely, seeing how it would be possible to visualize the responses, and have that sense making in different formats, whether it's, pie slices or whatever else, depending on how many choices we have as what the answers are. So things like that.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's cool. It's fun to be here.
Yeah. One of the things that I'm really excited about is if you capture sort of like these results, and then you want to use the results and actually make them an input into a new process, such as if you want to take these results and make them an input into a polling process, for example, where you could see how many people would vote for, like Robert said, a certain topic or a certain conversation perhaps we had, or those kinds of things. And being able to just pull in a list of statements or text inputs from a previously ran process and then kick off a new one really quickly based on that, so that you can do this step-by-step iteration evolution from where you started, get more kind of go into new layers of the process iteratively by feeding outputs and new inputs. And yeah, I just want to check again what you said about drop-down menus for responses. What did you mean by that?
Well, I think it was earlier when we were talking about the question framing, because you said what should they talk about, or then you rephrased it, and then I was just thinking about the way that prompting from selecting from a number of options for how to frame that was one of the places, but also I think it would not be possible because of the different chats where the question is showing up, but if people had that option to select in the question that they received. So, when the metamapper sends that chat prompt, whether it has, the information in it, and maybe that would be, maybe that's been run in the other tests of the ones that are more oriented towards polling or something too, where you would, the chat correspondence includes like the choices they're not going to be a drop-down menu because of the formatting. It's going to be copy paste or that sort of thing. But yeah, that's what
Right.
that was referencing, though. Different cases where having options to select from, you know.
Oh yeah, yeah. If you wanna pick between options, that's a polling type process. So I'll give you a quick sense, taste of that. So let's just say that we pulled in a few of these. Gonna do this. Have to do this manually, which is what I'm wanting to improve.
Something occurred to me. I don't know if I can wait.
Go ahead. I'm just.
Well, so I don't know. I guess this relates. I'm trying to sort of stay on track here, but it occurred to me that in this example, which is a cool one just to stay with, sort of pairing up people for conversations or having, the group weigh in on, obviously based on, knowledge or lack of knowledge, projecting what the conversation would be. Individuals could come up with, I don't know, 3 to 5 or whatever keywords, hashtags or something, and have them posted. And then I don't know if that would come back to where you are now with using those to pick between as options for polling or not. But that also might kind of help clue people in advance or at the outset of the process. And then kind of just extending that, then that all it didn't occur to me, but I guess then a word cloud could also be generated in advance, potentially for a person, but also then you could sort of take the, I don't know, something in the results that matches up with the keywords, or something with taking keywords from the results that could also just go into this word cloud that you mentioned. So that could be a handy way to do it. In other words, that could be word cloud responses for all this. I don't know if that made sense, but that's where I was trying to go.
Say 1 minute. So let's just do this again here. Quick. Underscore best. Yala and Stacy, right?
Yeah. One thing I was thinking, Connor, to show before we start all this, just to give a view on the call as well, in terms to give a flavor of how we're sort of thinking of this as a very sort of modular and fractal system. Because I think what we've shown so far sort of might give the impression that it's sort of like this very linear, simplistic thing. So it'd be, I think, it'd be cool if you wanted to show off maybe a bit of the no flow stuff at some point too, just to highlight that, because that wasn't shown on the last call, and it's pretty magical.
Yeah, right. Totally. There's like a deep, multifaceted kind of extensible system that actually underlies this this thing, that includes a sort of an element of a visual programming language, yeah, that's kind of an open-ended playground for the future, and I'll share it after we do this one. So let's just run through this one, which is a polling type process. And so it's just to get reactions, upvotes or downvotes on topics. And don't take it too seriously or anything like that. Just respond whatever if you want, or just to explore it. But let's start. So what you do, and I guess, yeah, I need to make this clear in the text, but in order to upvote or downvote, you press the key that is labeled, that is associated with the thing that you want to vote for. So for upvote, that's U, and for downvote, that's D. So that just means that you can respond in a single character to pick your vote.
To clarify, this is for what one is saying they are wanting to talk about, or like for ourselves to participate, or
Right. So like that challenge is like the frame that I set, which was not a good enough frame. What is the context? What does it mean to upvote or downvote one? And I think describing what the frames for these things are is super important. And so I didn't model a very good one here. We can interpret it how you want. One way to interpret it would be you think that's an important topic or not an important topic, whether you were to participate in it or not.
I might have found a little bug, Connor. It's kind of asking two questions at once, for me at least, on Telegram.
Yeah, it did that for me too, just now. Yeah.
It's also case sensitive.
Mm-hmm. That's why normally I use a lowercase u and an uppercase u accepted as inputs for something, so that it's not case sensitive. But yeah, something's glitched up on the responses. People are probably getting two at once. Yes, I am.
not in Mattermost, at least not yet.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. Robert, I added something new as well to these to this type of one, where you could have like a free form one where you can change how this works to something along the lines of like basically getting one free-form response for everything. So like you could have a list of questions and they can provide one answer to each question. You could have like free-form input. So like just a whole list of, or for example, another use case I was thinking of was translations. If you had like a list of statements and you had somebody who knew a different language, you could get them to translate each one, responding free-form to each one. And with this one too. You can kind of really do a lot of different things with these basic tools. They're actually very they're very flexible. How long did I? 60.
Yeah, I'm finished. I don't know if it's the same as last time, whether or not we'll have to just kind of manually end it or something.
Yeah. I'm not sure I'm finished too.
All done.
Also finished.
Let's see. Stacy, are you getting through it? No, there's none from Stacy yet.
I was just wondering, you have tested it for the timer to end the process? That does work, or?
Yeah, I have tested that. I'm not sure exactly. It's probably to do with my selecting between minutes and seconds and hours thing. It usually cuts off based on whatever I input, but maybe I got some kind of little bug in the selection way that it selects between minutes or seconds or something.
Yeah, I just kept getting not valid response. So I don't know if I'm doing something wrong, but I have to leave
Gotcha.
too. I
Okay.
have to leave, but thank you so much for letting me sit in and see what's going on.
Oh, thanks for participating, Stacy.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, see you.
Yeah, the bit of feedback that occurred to me is in terms of design and sort of UX UI in this space, it almost feels like it needs a little more sort of attention and effort, because I think a lot of these sort of bot-based things can often land you in sort of like way out of context zone where you're kind of like, whoa, what's going on here? Where something, in a way, what this is doing is taking something like a web form or Google form or something like that and really breaking it out and sort of dispersing it through bots. And I think normally if you're, I guess, on like a web form or something, you're kind of, you can just sit there in like a constant kind of stable context of I'm filling out this web form, and it's not like this sort of bot messaging me out of the blue or something like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of like there's definitely a lot of ways to tweak and enhance the way that it interacts with people. It's basically I've again, it's kind of like MVP, what's the way that it interacts with people, but that would be something that I think through this type of testing we get this very real feedback on, like, I did not understand, this part. Like, I did not understand what it's asking me to do or how it works. Like, so yeah, I'd love to kind of in even more of a focus group type session, I'd love to get people's very concrete feedback about that kind of thing.
I'm kind of just to clarify, because maybe I misunderstood, but well, I'll just say, to me, I think going back to a term I used in the beginning of the call, the scripting, I think is pretty key. And just
Yeah.
like simple stuff like, you need to use a lowercase u or something like that. But maybe I'm hearing that there's also some bugs or potential bugs, and that's on the tech side. But I think once all that is resolved, or most of, in the minimum viable way, then this kind of hand holding with just the really basic, very clear, direct language prompts, that's going to go a long way.
Yeah, and that's what I want to work with other people on, because it's going to be through what your experience is with it that I'm going to get a more concrete sense of like what didn't land, what were the gaps. So I'd love to work on that. Also, it's interesting because it's also an element that I didn't demo it here, but that aspect of like what kinds of things it says to people is also actually configurable per design that you do. So people, when you're doing this stuff, this configuration, you could actually, if you were kind of like, say, like an advanced process designer or whatever, you could drill down into the kind of power user options, which would be to configure the text yourself so that you can basically script the bot yourself and add special prompts or special types of basically the stuff that people end up interacting with the bot in the process. And that's even more important when you get into a process that's being run where we're not all on a live call together, right? Like right now, we're all on a call together, so I can clarify what I mean by things. But if this were a completely distributed flow, then, and someone was, say, receiving one of these messages even more out of the blue, then you would want that text to be really hit the spot of like framing what exactly is about to happen.
That's really cool. And is that, are you also referring to, within these templates, I don't remember how many there were, but sort of these modes, between the freeform and the polling and stuff, then each of those would kind of have the presets kind of default within the template, but then that also would be configurable, but kind of
Exactly.
on a kind of a structural guideline or something.
Yeah, exactly. So having kind of these power, again, the power user options, but right now I'm trying to tune it for simplicity in the case of like some of the early demos, so that it doesn't just come off like, you know, someone who's trying to use it gets like totally lost like instantly, where the amount that they want even see as configurable is kept to a low bar. And then adding those new tiers of like configuration as it's actually programmed for could happen like subsequently. Like, Viola, did you? Oh. Amazing. Well, Stacy and Lauren have had to drop off, and we've gone kind of even over while we were intending to.
I had one other kind of flash of something, which is, you know, I'm not a coder by a long shot, but I do know what I like to use in terms of UX. I'm not expert in UX design either, but I like this like sliding fader kind of you know, faders, and I'm just wondering if somehow that yeah, like toggling, or even toggling between, but I'm thinking more like I don't know. I am coming from audio engineer world, so you know, we could kind of use those metaphors, but whatever. I think just having a sense that these kind of configurations, instead of being, you know, instead of requiring the power user, you know, certification, you know, there could be still some kind of clickable presets that have a range of configurations, but I couldn't be more specific than that.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean, because there's, to a certain extent, we're trying to accommodate all these different chat platforms, but it's obvious probably to any of us that like certain types of information are not communicated most effectively just as text over text chat. Certain things are so much more easy for a user to input along a slider, or many different types of input mechanisms that you see in Google Forms and those kinds of things. So, so yeah, exploring ways to integrate those types of richer user experience around inputs for certain types of data and ways of engaging with the RSF processes is interesting too. I'm going to share, by the way, I'm going to share back into the channel our results, especially from our first flow, the one about what should people talk about. I think probably it'll be fun to review in full people's responses about matchmaking. Any other anything else we want to say?
I was curious just about other use cases that you're working on, or especially thinking about, either you or Rob.
Cool, yeah. Maybe I want to step away for a second. I guess I'm like being affected by, I need a quick bio break. So I'm just going to step away for a second, and then, but you know.
Well, I can, some of this I'd like to pair with, I guess you both maybe have context for something like game shifting, and particularly have it interwoven into something like video calls much more deeply, like this one, where the process sort of nicely weaves into, say, breakout calls, like the process that we sort of hinted at earlier, that it wouldn't just be sort of like this contrived sort of, hey, we're just demoing early stages of this thing, but yeah, it actually can make it easy for sort of actually breaking out into those breakout rooms. And that, yeah, that this could be, because even on some of the workshop, like for example, the Commons Engine workshop around currency design I've been helping with recently, really we've just been piggybacking off some of the basic sort of Zoom features for how to do maybe hand raising or like whiteboards or something like that. And I was looking for different tools that enable you to do kind of more fun real-time processes. Because I think, as I said earlier, things like Google Forms or otherwise, like they're already pretty nicely polished. They have all kinds of different drop downs and things like that. But yeah, I'm not so sure they'd be as nice for like this really participatory, real-time collaborative sort of thing, which is what I'm hopeful RSF will be a lot more easier to opt in on. And that, yeah, so either maybe deeply integrating with something like Zoom or maybe other open source tools like Big Blue Button or something like that. Because it'd be great to have a bot that sits in, say, the Zoom call, and you don't need to sort of, I don't know, juggle 2 or 3 different apps and switching back and forth between different things.
Well,
So yeah, I don't know.
it's
Those are just some ideas.
yeah, hearing that, just thinking about be great to have like this is a little bit of a tangent from it, but it's the game shifting interface as part of the video call. Like just being able to have a game shifting interface during the video call and being able to, you know, provide that, and or being able to select for which breakout, because using Zoom in calls recently as well too, like how to integrate something where people's responses could, in that real time, and I guess in terms of like integrating other apps into a space or piggybacking like the way Otter AI works with, or you can run that separate from Zoom or through it or whatever. But I definitely think that game shifting feedback processes would be awesome to be able to integrate for yeah, for that type of space.
I'm just thinking that the or Connor, did you want to say anything on that? I don't know before I. No. Anyway, yeah, one of the things that distinguishes rapid sense making for me from, let's say, the kind of related stuff we've been talking about with UX and game design and stuff is the time element, is specifically that timed constraint frame. And so actually, and I think maybe all of you or some of you know, especially Rob, I was involved in this startup a few years ago at the beginning of the Open Learning Commons phase that was actually a decision-making platform that used pairwise comparison in a timed way. So there was a lot of similarity. It had some other things, but so I guess.
What was that, Charles?
Well, it's a company called Impact RI, and I guess they're still going, and I guess their thing that is still going called Quark, QIARK. So yeah, I don't know how much is accessible publicly, but so yeah, I could talk to you another time, maybe not on a recording about that. But let me see. I was thinking. Yeah, again, just about this timing aspect, and like there's a whole sort of like psychology dimensions around that, but also I mean just to underscore and come back into the scripting and the guideline. There's a very specific communications in the directions, the instructions, and the prompts. I think that is critical in light of the timed aspect. So in other words, you don't want friction in any sort of
right.
understanding of like what's going on in the context.
Yeah, absolutely.
You want it to make it really efficient, but also effective in terms of the result, producing the desired results that would kind of most clearly reflect, etc. Than
right.
when people like losing time because they can't figure it out.
And maybe like having a message the facilitator option in some way too, like send a quick message to the facilitator, so such that you could kind of have a quick exchange with them or something along those lines.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking, in the sort of ideal case, I mean, obviously after it evolves a bit, that if you have 30 seconds or 1 minute or even 2 minutes, then there
That's not a good
just the
time.
thought
Yeah.
process of like messaging someone over here.
No.
It's like, no, you want to just boom, 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 crank through, you know.
Yeah, totally. In the quick time constrained ones. Yeah.
But for these models and demo sessions, totally, yeah, absolutely. Help.
Yeah. Like again, we've got like a live chat channel open here, but like if you were trying to do it totally distributed as I think you should be able to, and I'd like to prototype for, then you need some kind of something along the lines of a back channel in a way, but the back channel could actually be through the same channel. Like I actually think a lot of think about using the same system. Like you could use certain keywords to like say type help, and it could take you out of the process-based context and throw you into a temporary chat-based context with the facilitator, like within the same without leaving the space, like no actual back channel. That is the back channel, but just by kind of switching context by saying help or something like that. Some special keywords that change, that put you on pause from the process-based thing into a different.
So,
Also,
I just interject. So you use the word pause, and I was just thinking, you know, in this phase where it's really sort of like manually done anyway, then that participant could actually pause the clock potentially, you know, if and then come and then like that.
Yeah, that kind of proposes how the important thing is not necessarily the whole group being subject to the time constraint, the same time constraint fixed, so much as that the benefit of the time constraint is from the perspective of the individual.
That would be just a great thing to build in as an option either way, because I think there could be advantages and benefits of either way, and you could just have that as something to select in the design of it.
I also have in my sort of design concept is that the facilitator can send broadcast messages out to the group through the bot proxies. So what you would see as the participant is message from the facilitator, and it can come in at any time, and the facilitator can just kind of, they could clarify after the fact something that they forgot, or call people's, kind of build upon the initial prompt with some type of extra, some additional help with the frame, or something along those lines, so that once the process starts, you're not locked out from your participants in a way.
Well, a couple of things we sort of touched on while you were gone game shifting, Connor, and it occurred to me that some of these things, I don't know, when we've been meeting up recently, we're sort of finding the interesting distinction between how easy and natural it is in person to run a process, say with sticky notes and people just write ideas down. Like it's trying to take a step into the digital realm where it gets a whole lot more sort of sticky, and people might have tech issues, and versus if you're in person with some sticky notes, nobody's going to say like, I don't know, my thought isn't submitting onto the sticky note or something like that. Like either the pen's working or not. But just thinking about how in the game shifting realm too, like it's almost like certain groups you'd have to become almost like, in a little way, almost like a community of practice together, where you get better and better and quicker at using these tools. And so when you do it again next time, it's a lot more rapid than it was the first time. And that in a way, that's sort of the point of game shifting too, is you start being able to name games and being able to dynamically sort of shift between different modes for different reasons. So I don't know, in some ways, I guess we're trying to make this applicable to all different types and scales, and not just sort of like crack squads of like effective CI on a collaboration or something like that. But that it would be sort of good for both, and if you get better with it, then it gets better with you.
Yeah. Well, just because it's fresh right now too, like I see kind of the opportunity for like a meta.
Oh, I can't hear you,
Uh,
Kale.
oh, really? Let's see.
I don't
I
know
can hear you.
Does anyone not?
why it doesn't
Okay.
look like you're muted.
I can hear
All right.
Kayla. Can
So
you hear me, Connor? Because I can hear him.
Oh, okay. I must have, sorry. Can you just
okay.
say it again?
Do you hear me? Do you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I was feeling into this, like, so it's a meta level collaborative platform, so integrating the way that RSF framework could be part of a game shifting like tool set that are part of a collaborative meeting platform. So, we cobble together all the different tools, but imagine that Zoom actually had these features, built into it to be able to do that. And then we could just say, you know what, why don't we do breakouts now, and people could actually be joining into those different ones, or you could pull up that menu and initiate that right in the moment, just to create it so that if people were, a work team, or they were, because some of it's exploratory stuff, but it could be a work team where problem solving, and so you could use it, kind of agile in a way. And there's lots of
Totally.
ways that we do this video meeting work, or we at least can. So it's possible that it could be related in a use case sort of like that. That was related to game shift. The reason I got kind of excited about that is I feel like some of the other features of game shifting being integrated into a video call platform would be really great, like being able to give feedback around where the energy is, or like what like where to go next, or like suggesting to talk to someone different, because like the chat runs, but it runs only on the side, and it's kind of, it's good that it's there, but what if it was more dynamically integrated with the whole thing? So that's a bit of a meta thought, but anyway, like how it relates to what this came up.
I can jam on that just a little more in that, well, Keala and I have met in some various group conversations as part of something called Now What. I don't know if Rob and Connor, if you know about that. Ben Roberts and a few people coming out of something else called TRCC, Thriving Resilient Communities Collaboratory. Anyway, so there's sort of these networks, and there's a lot of Zoom calls and a lot of interesting stuff also with regard to breakouts, but also just other kinds of activities and exercises. And it just occurs, and so I guess the key word here, coming back to something you used a lot, is facilitation. So there's all kinds of facilitation, and this whole world of dynamic facilitation is like giant. And I'm still sort of, I mean, so Kayla and I are fairly close, and Rob is also connected, I think, with Tom Atlee, for example, and through him I've connected with a lot of this dynamic facilitators. So it just occurs to me as a broad observation, Kayla, to extend what you're saying.
I haven't heard this term dynamic facilitation. What does it, is there a specific context and stuff that you use that?
Chiara probably knows more than me. I think one person is Rosa Supatereta, who's one of the creators of the GroupWorks pattern language card deck. Again, my knowledge is more surface, but Chiara, maybe you could say more.
Oh, okay, cool. Rob's got a link for me too, thanks. But yeah, this sounds really interesting. I haven't heard that. But yeah, I love who you guys are connecting with. These and Robert and I have connected with Ben Roberts in the past, never with Tom Atlee directly though, other than your initial connection points of RSF with the stuff that you were doing, connecting with them, Charles. But yeah, that's a direction and a whole community space that I'd love to be seeing how this feeds the work that's going on in that whole space.
Yeah, no, it's alive and it's thriving, and I would say definitely it's sort of ripe for the picking in terms of like we could sort of just come up with something or just start to have some more conversations, and I think one other platform, but sort of space that there's a gathering in that also Keala is in there is on Sutra, and do you know Lorenz Sell? He's a creator of something called Sutra.io. Sorry, I think it's .co maybe. Sutra.co. Anyway, so well, leaving apart the tool or the platform itself, which actually has some really interesting features, there's just happens to be some conversations going on there with Ben and a couple other people, more or less from this Now What gathering, let's say, and but it's with a focus around building a knowledge commons and looking at certain tools or combinations of tools, and so that's just one example. But I mean, there's a lot of different kind of aggregations we could come up with there.
Yeah.
One quick note is that I did the last this Wise Democracy deep dive, and part of what came out of that is the community of practice, and we're actually going to set up that as a CAS portal in DigLife, so it'll be an adjacent space that we could invite to play with that. That seems like it would just like kind of naturally tie in. The first
what
next,
did you just call it? There was the Wise Democracy deep dive, and then
community
the community of practice.
Right.
Community of practice, and then CAS, which is the cooperation as a service, and that's like the DigLife portals for the different communities. And I've been working on setting up a few of those, and so since they're already tied in with Mattermost pretty easily, that seems like there's the place to play with that. But one reason I also wanted to mention is that we're going to do a deep dive into the prime directive of Wise Democracy as a next journey. So I would just invite that. I don't know if you're interested, but it's basically how do we support the whole, how do these choices do that? But the Co-Intelligence Institute is housing the Wise Democracy project, and then there's definitely some crossover possibilities there. So inviting that.
Well, thank you, Cal. You're just reminding me of a whole wave of thoughts I was having some time ago, and I let some of it out on Twitter. You might recall Rob and Connor in regard to the Wise Democracy and rapid sense-making mapped up potential. And yeah, I'm all for it, definitely.
Well, it is cool to hear that there's a direction that includes Mattermost for that community, and I kind of really like that having the Mattermost integration for rapid sense making, it kind of it unlocks community use cases just kind of automatically, like when you create what you have to, there's one manual step, which is that someone who's part of the community or the chat, a Mattermost chat platform has to create a bot account. In this case, I maybe Robert, one of us created the MetaMapper account on the DigLife co-op one, and but as soon as you create a bot account, then that community can immediately start kind of accessing the rapid sense-making framework through that portal. So that's kind of just a whole set of easy wins and easy access there.
What about emoji? Going back in there.
Yeah, I think it should handle emoji fine. I think in terms of responses. I don't know about when we were first exploring with Slack, we did some of the special interactive features, kind of like Rob just linked to, these interactive messages, ones where you can use some of the special features of certain chat platforms to basically do really easy polling and stuff, and it adds buttons to messages and stuff like that. And maybe in the future we could kind of reintroduce stuff like that, but I've been basically streamlining it back to pure text for the time being, so that I can make sure that it works across all the different platforms, say including SMS, which obviously there's no special features there. It's just it's just raw text, and I'm trying to make sure that it supports that, because I'm thinking about certain situations where potentially you could use the rapid sense-making framework even in a context, if you can access SMS, then you can have an internetless context and still actually be still utilize the process. If there's a cell network, but no internet networks. So thinking about those kinds of scenarios as well in terms of I've been inspired by this project WeFarm in Africa, which is purely SMS based, peer-to-peer network of farmers providing support for other farmers or something, purely over SMS. It's really cool. Thank you. So it's kind of like looking at a very broad range, broad spectrum of systems.
Kayala, did the emoji reference ring any bells, or because these guys had much earlier made for Slack and for Mattermost an integration with MetaMaps with the emojis. Did you know about that?
I don't think that I did, and unfortunately, I didn't get to play with MetaMaps as much during with all of you. Actually, years ago, Ben Brownell was the first person to kind of like, teach me how to drive the maps a bit here in person. He happened to be here ways back with Ishan, and when they were traveling through here, they had a place, like a retreat house that they got to come stay at that was not that far from where I am now. I don't know if that's still a spot in the network, but so anyway, that was some time back. But I'm going to need to jump gears pretty soon, but I'm appreciating the time together, and if there's a little more to share on that now, I definitely can hang for that on the emojis.
You guys want to just recap that, or I don't know. I'm still quite inspired by that.
I'm trying to think of what the different things were that were part of that. Just like, I think it introduced a different layer to chat where you could link new messages to old messages remotely on MetaMaps by starring or adding an emoji to an old message and then adding a new thing into the chat. So you could kind of create the non-linear out of the linear. You could form new MetaMaps-based synapses just through the chat by putting an emoji on another one and then adding a new one. So you were building a map or a network from the chat-based context, which usually it's so frustrating that in so many senses it's linear and just like infinitely nests or whatever goes downwards. But this was like, oh, this responds back to that, and it kind of just opens up a different dimension of the chat. And also you could make, you could add an emoji based on a custom metamaps.cc metacodes that we imported. You could add one of the metacode emojis to an old chat message, and that would automatically capture that message to a metamap. So that would mean the use case for that would be like, someone said something really insightful, basically the text as it was that they stated was like, oh, that's a great idea. I want to save that somewhere. And so you just add an emoji to it, and it saves it to a map with that metacode, that particular metacode in MetaMaps. And so you could capture knowledge generation that was happening dynamically in chat, dynamically as well into a map, which I think in a lot of use cases we didn't put it really to work, and it was somewhat of a prototype. So that's where I'm like, all these like good ideas, but they have yet to really kind of flesh out and see production level readiness and usage. Yeah. Rob loved these things too. You guys really loved these things. I mean, I thought they were really fun too.
Really cool. Yeah, even in the prototype mode, I think, yeah, we did some good stuff. And, I mean, we could sort of harvest that, but I think, you know, even just in the outputs from these RSF tests, you know, could sort of just come around and back out of the Mattermost into the map and like that. You know, I don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, it was also occurring to me that maybe it's hard to design for all these cases where like you're affording just SMS text-based sort of participation, but yeah, that for some of the interfaces in terms of like sliders or even showing a sort of like a graph visualization you can actually play with, at some point to do some of the more sort of sophisticated interactions, you're going to need sort of a web app interface. Like even the sort of nice buttons and stuff in Slack or otherwise is only just a watered down version of what can be done if you have a full web app interface. And then especially if we're going to try and do something like game shifting where each participant has their own little dashboard and the facilitator has like, or at least the whole group has a dashboard that they're all looking at. So there's this interesting game that I reminded Connor of recently. I forget what, I'm going to have to look up the link to it, but it's basically like your team is manning sort of the flight deck of a spaceship and everybody has their own little dashboard that they're playing with. And that's sort of the metaphor that I think of in terms of the like really sort of sophisticated teams that we might sort of create interfaces to afford that sort of interaction. So yeah, I guess game shifting on that level would look like you're flying like a collaborative spaceship or something like that.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, no background. Flying collaborative spaceships.
Well, this what I could say. It's a hyper spaceship or a hypothetical.
Hyper spaceship.
Hyper.
Thanks so much for coming, Kayla, Charles. Thanks for hosting, Rob. You do a great job at that. Yeah, I really like Rob and I are collaborating on this and intending to look for good use cases and areas to real communities and people to test this with. I'm focusing, I think initially I'm really going to try to do a few things like on the ground in a room with people because I'm going to get really quick feedback that way. Try to hash out the bugs and stuff like that. And hopefully refine some of the scripting and that kind of stuff. And then that's going to be a great time, I think, to then kind of look at these the more virtual community or distributed community use cases. Once we get that a little bit more further along. Also, if you guys are interested in, I was already intending to try to package the app, certain early releases of the app for distribution, and would be happy to like throw it at you guys, put it in your hands, if you're interested in like getting hands-on with it and playing with the facilitators side of it, and offering kind of some early testing and experiments with that. Let me know.
Yes. Yes, please.
Cool.
One thing that just occurred to me, Connor, I know that we've been meeting up physically on Wednesdays, and a couple weeks back I put out that, hey, maybe we could also have even just a short sort of weekly digital co-working session. And I was reminded that, yeah, something like RSF would be a great sort of thing to have at the center of a regular call, even with others. Well, I used to host calls, and I think there's a desire to start up again hosting something called that was called Metacogs. This group sort of specifically looking at how do we augment our cognition, and maybe in a collective way too. So I think, I don't know if that group sort of also murkily sort of evolved into maybe some of the stuff that Roland was spearheading with some of these reading groups and things. But yeah, I don't know. It occurred to me that there might be space for.
Yeah, well, certainly we can get back into doing some of the online co-hack things, and yeah, there is a lot of interesting like things in the actual software process with this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would just add the pedagogy to the list, and currently, and as Roland sort of spearheading the reading group discussion, but it's also Joe Cornelli primarily, and a couple other the original co-authors of the pedagogy. That is Tuesdays. I guess it's 3 p.m. East Coast time on Tuesdays. So that's just FYI. And I think if we might flag one, if it's before the end of the year, that's great, or maybe into early next year, where you could both of you perhaps could join. Just to pretend a little bit, and we can also run some game. I would say that would be definitely appropriate. Just kind of broadly within the pedagogy stuff. That would be appropriate. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
Getting it out there.
All right. Let's let everybody go, and been on for a long time. Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. Wonderful. So look for you in the channel and take it.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, guys. Good to
Bye.
see you.
Later.
Much love.
Cheers.